Welcome to the Overcoming Mediocrity Project, where today's top influencers and entrepreneurs on the rise share empowering stories and ninja tips to become the fuel that ignites a positive change in your life. Our guests don't simply coast through life. They don't let difficult situations stop them. They set big goals, keep their eyes on the prize, and they're joining us today to share insider secrets you can use right now to step into your power and live your purpose. Now, here's your host, Christie Ruffino.
Welcome to today's episode of the Overcoming Mediocrity Podcast. I am Christie Ruffino, the host of the show, and today's guest. I want to thank you because right now we are celebrating our 31st episode. We rolled out this podcast in December, and I'm happy to say we've had over 12,000 downloads already. So I want to take this time to thank you, our fans, and everybody that's followed our Overcoming Mediocrity Project and our mission to help people, women and men, get their stories out in the world in a bigger way. And today I have something special. I know I get asked so many times about the power of story. And stories are so powerful. They can either hold us back or they can propel us on to greater things. And in business especially, mastering the art of sharing our story can be a real game changer. But in business, our stories are important, but it's critical that we stay focused not on what we want to share, but what our audience wants to hear, or more importantly, what our audience needs to hear. So today I'm going to share 5 key tips around storytelling in business. Remember, I said it's about what our audience needs to hear. For years, I heard fat, lazy, and stupid. That's what I heard. That's what I was being told. And year after year of hearing this, eventually I believed it. And then when my marriage ended and the changes of being a single mom overwhelmed me, I didn't know what to do. I really felt that all of those cycles that were playing in my head were true. I'm fat. Nobody's going to ever love me. I'm lazy. I'll never be able to do it on my own. And I'm stupid. No matter what I try, I'm going to fail. At that point, I was never on my own. I had gone from living with my parents to a relationship, a marriage. And although I thought it was the perfect thing, I really thought that we were going to have that white picket fence and everything was going to be, like you see in the Disney movies, the fairy tale life. Well, it didn't end up by happening that way. And when my life kind of just came to an abrupt halt at that point, everything I knew and my existence, even though it wasn't the best, it was all I had known. I was faced with this whole overwhelming feat of trying to take care of my family, trying to take care of my children, trying to take care of my home, trying to find my identity. I just didn't know what to do, and I honestly didn't think I could do it. I was even at a point where I went for days, even almost 2 weeks, where I just was helpless. I couldn't get out of bed. I didn't eat. I wasn't taking care of my children like I should. And my mom actually took them for a while because she's like, you need to snap out of it. And I'm like, I can't snap out of it. And so she wanted to make sure my kids were taken care of. Of course, she made sure I was fine. I made it through. But I was so depressed that I was having a hard time just waking up the next morning and seeing any kind of hope. I even actually got on medication for a while just because I needed something to be able to get over that hump and be able to start thinking that there was life around the end of the corner. But eventually I did rally. And like a diamond that gets stronger and shines brighter after centuries of pressure, I didn't give up and I started to shine. Every day I took another step and I made it work. At least for that day I did. And then I went on to the next day. And then I kept taking baby steps and I kept taking baby steps. And eventually I got stronger and I was able to move forward without the meds and with my kids again. It was great. And then one day, years later, after I had already gone through a couple jobs, got on my feet, got semi-stable financially, got some sort of routine. My kids were getting older. Everything was kind of rolling along just fine. I had a business at that point. I was, I think, 8 years into the journey of the Dynamic Professional Women's Network. And I kind of felt like, all right, I've got this. Things are going well, and I've got a mission. I've got a plan. I've got a focus. And somebody at that point asked me to share my story. And you may have listened to our pilot episode, maybe not. Maybe this is the first time you've heard about our podcast. But when I told my story at that point, it was a game changer for my business. Up until then, again, like I said, we were 7 or 8 years into our community. You know, we had, I don't know, maybe 6, 7, 8 chapters at that point. Mostly in the Chicagoland area. We may have had a Wisconsin chapter or 2 at that point as well. But when I was asked to share my story, my first reaction was, oh gosh, why do I want to share my story? First of all, I'm an introvert. My private life, I like to keep that private, and to be able to share that with the world, especially like I'm doing right now on this podcast, it's a lot easier for me now than it was then, but it was something that I really didn't want to do. But when I was explained how having a book, how I could share my story and it would position me differently in the marketplace, she kind of got my attention. And then she just asked me one simple question. She said, Christie, if your story, telling your story, could help at least one person, how could you say no? She kind of had me there, especially when I thought about how helpful it would have been if I would have been able to read the story from somebody else that had already gone through what I was in the middle of at that time. It would have helped me feel more empowered. I would have, I believed, got through it much faster. And I just feel like I would have felt like I wasn't so alone. And so I eventually said yes. And it was a yes that I do not regret. What happened is my transparency allowed my members, the women of my community, which, you know, they were clients at that point, it allowed them to connect with me at a deeper level. They became more loyal, and they started to invite more women into our community. And we grew faster than ever before because now new members wanted to belong. And we eventually had more and more waiting lists than we could actually handle. Since then, I've created dozens of books just like that one that feature women and their stories under the Overcoming Mediocrity brand. And of course, the podcast, what you're listening to. And I can't tell you how many times I get an initial no from a woman who says that she would love to share her story or that she's got an amazing story, but she doesn't think anybody would want to listen to it. We tend to, as women, not recognize the value of our stories or not recognize the value of our accomplishments. We just put our heads down and we do it, not necessarily realizing how great we were that we did it. But just like myself, many of the women I speak to do say yes. And those are the women that have shared their stories inside the pages of many of our Overcoming Mediocrity books. We're actually producing book number 10 right now, and I'm lining up an amazing team of women for book number 11. And I have a couple that want to be in book number 12 because they're not quite ready yet this year, but they want to be the first to be published in our books for 2022. So what I'm going to do right now is take a quick commercial break. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to share my 5 key tips that I've learned about storytelling and how they are advantageous to the growth of your business so you can make a bigger impact in the world, in the lives of your clients, and of course, in your own life. So we'll see you back in just a moment. Anyone can network. Yes, anyone can meet people and collect business cards. However, not everyone knows how to network in a way that will provide them with a regular supply of new and repeat business. Treasured Tribes is more than just another networking book. This revolutionary book will show you how to adapt different strategies with your networking efforts that will get you better results than ever before. To grab your copy, visit www.treasuredtribes.com. Well, hello there. I'm back. This is Christie Ruffino, and we are on the topic of storytelling and how sharing your story and story in general can make a huge impact in your business. And then we want to talk about how that could really help make a bigger impact in the world, of course. But let's get on to the 5 key tips that I've learned about storytelling and how your business can be really up-leveled. Or if you're starting a new business, getting your story involved in your business can really make a huge difference to get more eyeballs on you and to connect better with your prospects and clients. So number 1, our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us on to greater things. I mentioned that in the intro when we first started talking about story in this episode. And I've seen over and over again how our challenges allow us to become better equipped to live into our true purpose. You know, purpose is a funny thing. Our purpose, I believe, changes over time. When I was younger, of course, my purpose was to be a great mom and a great wife and a great homemaker. And I really wanted to throw myself into being the best at those. Now, of course, I pretty much always had a job, even, at age 15. And then when I got married, I worked part-time. I got up at 4:30 every morning. Yeah, remember when I was told I was lazy? Well, I got up at 4:30 every morning to go to a job so we could have medical insurance because my husband had a business, but he was self-employed. And so I got up super duper early. I had a great job and I was home by noon every day. We had a relative coming to the house to watch the kids and get them onto the bus. And I got home at noon and then I did all the yard work, the housework, everything, cooking dinner, everything I needed to do, get the kids situated, get them to bed. And then I did all of the business work, company business work in the evening. So that was my purpose back then, is to be the best mom, homemaker, wife I could be. And then as, things evolved, my life changed, my purpose changed. And I've gone through so many crazy things in my life. Oh my gosh, I could list them all. I could list, of course, that story. I could list my whole episode about shingles and the betrayal that I've kind of felt that my body produced, or didn't produce health. And I was in a place in my life that I believed I was on the right track and I was finally taking care of myself. And finally, I felt things were going well. And then I get shingles. Now, I know we think of shingles as the thing that your grandma gets, or we think shingles, oh my gosh, my house is leaking. I need to spend a ton of money to get new shingles for my roof. Either way, the word shingles is not a great word that you want to hear. But that is another story and how that all came together. And that's another focus. So the bottom line is we evolve, our purpose evolves throughout our life. And I think what we have to do is realize that there comes a time, especially as women, that we can't always focus on helping other people achieve their purpose. There becomes a time when we really need to live into our purpose, what we were created for, what we want to do, what lights us up, what we're good at, and what we were created to do. And so I believe that all of the challenges in our life have set us up to become the perfect person to accomplish our purpose. So we need to make sure that those obstacles, those challenges, all of those bad things that happen to us don't hold us back. We need to realize that those problems can become the fuel to propel us forward. So tip number 2 is your story is never complete. You don't have to wait to have the perfect story, and I hear that so often. Women would love to be able to position their story in their business, but they say, heck, I'm in the middle of my story. My story's not over. And then we start talking and we realize that, yeah, they're in the middle of something right now, but they have something in their past that is the real perfect positioning tool for their business right now. So your story is never complete. You're constantly evolving. My purpose right now, my story right now is completely different than it was 10 years ago, and it's going to be completely different than it will be 10 years in the future. So your story is never complete. Number 3, your signature story does not have to be directly related to your current business. I'm a business strategy coach. That has nothing to do with a divorce. That has nothing to do with persevering through something difficult in my life. But the strategies, the experience, all of the lessons I learned through that and through my life has positioned me perfectly to help my clients right now. I have another client who she lost over 100 pounds on her weight loss journey. Do you think she's a weight loss coach right now? No. But the principles she learned during that portion of her life have set her up perfectly to be a personal coach. So a little different, not on weight loss, but she learned a lot on that journey that she helps her clients right now with as a life coach. So number 4, you don't have to have only one story. I said earlier, your story should not be about what you want to share, but about what your audience needs to hear. So that being said, you should be sharing the story that's relative to that specific situation. Depending on if you're on a podcast, if you're speaking at an event, maybe you're at a chamber event and you're talking to somebody, you should have different types of stories that you can use for different occasions. Now, I believe you should only have one signature story for one focus in one period of your life, but you should have a lot of complementary stories as well as client success stories, because you can illustrate a point not only by your personal story, but by a client success story. So you just want to realize that your story should not be told to serve your purpose, but the purpose of the audience, and that you use your story as the vehicle to allow them to learn from you or be inspired by you. So that's number 4. You don't have only one story. You want to create a bank of stories. I actually have a story journal that doesn't only have stories, but it has jokes and other funny things that I have kind of picked up through the years, listening to other people speak, as well as just everyday life. So number 5, sharing your story in business is not selfish or egocentric. It's actually one of the toughest and most selfless things you can do to serve your clients authentically. If you're sharing your story for their purpose, to help them learn or be inspired by you, that's not selfish at all. I believe it's actually brave. It's brave for you to open yourself up that way. It's brave for you to share a little piece of yourself. Your story is it's actually kind of like a snowflake. It's very unique to you. But just like a snowflake, they're beautiful when you can really see them in the light. And when you share your story and people can see you in that light, and the light your story sheds in the world, they're going to see you in a completely different way. It's going to allow your audience to also step into their power, because by sharing your story, it gives them permission to achieve their greater story. So sharing your story in business is not selfish. So I encourage you to share your story. Those are the 5 tips I have to share. And you may be thinking, heck, I love this. I'd love to share my story, but I don't know how. And I would love to invite you to my story workshop that I have coming up in just a few weeks. I'm really excited about it. I've shared it a couple times. It is a 1.5 hour masterclass that focuses on helping you determine your 6-figure signature story formula. And I will make sure that you have the dates below so you can register. And even if you can't attend the live event, make sure you register anyways, because I will make sure that if I do have an encore performance, or if I do run the class again, that you'll be the first one to get invited. So the 6-figure signature story formula masterclass is a hands-on interactive class where you will discover and craft the framework of your 6-figure signature story. It's going to be held May 12th at 10 a.m. Central Time, and you just have to find the link below in the show notes to be able to reserve your seat. And did I mention the class is completely free? It is. So make sure you don't only register for yourself, but invite a guest. Love to have you join me. And the class will be limited to a small group of women. So make sure you register to secure your seat, and I will see you in the show. And today, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We have a great lineup of guests still coming up. Oh my gosh, you should see all the people that we have coming up in the next few months. And I have, my lineup of guests that I have on the interview docket are amazing as well. So make sure that you subscribe to our show. Make sure you rate us, review us. And if you really want, send me a quick email. I'd love to have some feedback from you of how I can make our podcast better, as well as serve you and our clients in a greater way. So again, this is Christie Ruffino, and I thank you for joining me in the Overcoming Mediocrity podcast. And I hope you have an amazing rest of the day and live a more empowered life.
Thanks for listening to the Overcoming Mediocrity Podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams once they've learned the art of mastering their story. Mastering our stories is the key to everything we want in life. Our stories can either hold us back or they can propel us to new heights. We can choose. You can choose. Choose to overcome mediocrity with us. Let's achieve greatness together. To learn more, visit www.overcomingmediocrity.org. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast.